In the early hours of April 15th, 1912, one of the most famous ships ever built disappeared beneath the surface of the North Atlantic. Over 1,500 people died, the world mourned, and history seemed settled. But for more than a century, a disturbing question has refused to stay buried. What if the ship that sank wasn't the Titanic? What if the disaster was not an accident, but an intentional act? An insurance scheme, a calculated sacrifice, and a swap so audacious that it would require silence from hundreds, if not thousands, of people and the deaths of over 1,000. Today, we're going to examine the theory that the Titanic never sank at all, and that the wreck lying at the bottom of the ocean isn't the Titanic's at all, but rather her sister ships, the RMS Olympic. Real quick before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that I cover topics like this every single week on this channel, so if that sounds interesting to you, then consider subscribing. I know I'm a small channel, but maybe you'll enjoy some of the stuff we have planned. Anyways, let's get into it. Thanks for watching, guys. To understand this theory, we first need to start in Belfast, Northern Ireland. At the Heartland and Wolfe shipyard, two nearly identical ocean liners were being built side by side. The first was the RMS Olympic, the second was the RMS Titanic. They were part of White Star Line's Olympic-class liners, the largest and most luxurious ships the world has ever seen. The Olympic was laid down first, launched in 1910 and entered service in 1911. The Titanic followed shortly after, launching in 1911 and preparing for her maiden voyage in April of 1912. To the untrained eye, the ships looked identical. Same length, same engines, same four massive funnels. And this similarity is the foundation of what this conspiracy theory is built on. All seemed to be going well for White Star Line, but just months before the Titanic's maiden voyage, something happened that would change everything. On September 20th of 1911, the Olympic collided with a British warship, the HMS Hawke. This is a recorded event. It is confirmed that this happened. The ship sustained serious damage. The Olympic's hull was torn open, her propeller shaft was bent, and she had to return to Belfast for extensive repairs. Here's where the theories step in. The theorists argue that the Olympic was fatally damaged beyond what White Star Line wanted to actually admit. Repairs were very expensive, the ship was out of service, and worse still, the Olympic was already aging. So, according to the theorists, the White Star Line had one of two choices: either eat the cost of repairing a damaged ship, or, on the other hand, make the problem disappear entirely. The theory essentially goes as follows. While both ships were in Belfast in early 1912, the Olympic was being repaired and the Titanic was being finished, the two vessels were secretly swapped. The damaged Olympic was disguised as the Titanic, and the new Titanic took the Olympic's identity. Then, on April 10th of 1912, the ship that left Southampton bearing the name Titanic was actually the Olympic, and just days later, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, it was sunk intentionally. So that sounds pretty outlandish, but that begs the question. What was the motive of this? Why would you want to do this in the first place? The motive that is most often cited is insurance fraud. The Titanic was insured for about $5 million, but she cost closer to $7.5 million to build. So the theory claims that the White Star Line would lose money if the Titanic sunk, unless the ship that sunk wasn't the Titanic at all. Instead, they sacrifice the Olympic, collect the insurance payout, and keep the newer ship alive under the Olympic's name. Some versions of the theory go even further. They suggest that powerful figures, including J.P. Morgan, orchestrated the disaster. Morgan canceled his ticket at the last minute, and several wealthy men who opposed the Federal Reserve died on board. To believers, this looks pretty intentional. And to some, the evidence is there. Many people argue that portholes don't match, promenade decks appear enclosed when they shouldn't be, photographs seem mislabeled, and they also point out that the Titanic left port without a full inspection. They also argue that eyewitness testimony of the event is inconsistent. Many different survivors of the event had different claims and different accounts of what actually happened. And the Federal Reserve portion of the theory argues that really three men aboard the Titanic, John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Strauss, were aboard the Titanic and opposed the creation of the Federal Reserve System. J.P. Morgan, the owner of the White Star Line, supported the creation of the Federal Reserve System, and so the conspiracy argues that because those men passed away aboard the Titanic, that essentially cleared the way for the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. So now that we've discussed the actual conspiracy, where are the holes? This is where the theory begins to collapse. First of all, the ships were not identical. The Titanic had structural upgrades that the Olympic did not. It was considered to be a more technologically advanced ship than the Olympic, as it had enclosed promenades, different cabin layouts, different portholes, different deck configurations, and hundreds of small differences, not just cosmetic, but structural. Swapping them would require months of labor and silence from thousands of shipyard workers. Second, the numbers. Every ship part was stamped with a construction number. The Olympic was yard number 400, Titanic was yard number 401. Artifacts recovered from the wreck site, including massive propellers, are stamped 401, and you simply can't fake that. It's regulation. You can't replace the ship's propellers, you can't restamp tens of thousands of components, and every single piece recovered matches the Titanic. So even though it may bear some structural similarities to the Olympic, that really can't be faked unless there was corruption on a much higher level than just White Star Line and JP Morgan. And so that addresses the initial conspiracy, but what about the insurance myth? Well, White Star Line did not actually profit from the Titanic sinking. According to official records, they lost money. The Olympics repairs after the Hawk collision cost far less than the conspiracy claimed, only about 200,000 euros at the time, so not catastrophic for a giant company like White Star Line. Scuttling a brand new ship for less than its value would have been one of the worst fraud schemes in history. JP Morgan is no fool, so it seems unlikely. Here's the most damning part of the whole conspiracy. If this were true, someone would have talked. There would have had to have been thousands of people involved, shipbuilders, engineers, inspectors, crew, but no official documents at least exist. No confessions, no whistleblowers, and nobody at the time raising any alarm about what was going on at the dockyard. However, finally, in 1985, the wreck of the Titanic was finally discovered by oceaneer Robert Ballard, and it officially answered the question once and for all. The ship lying on the ocean floor had the Titanic's construction number, layout, damage patterns, and engraved name. The wreck found on the floor of the Atlantic was in fact the Titanic, at least according to official records. There is no ambiguity, the wreck is the Titanic. So that begs the question, why does this theory refuse to die? Well, I believe it's because, first off, it's a fun theory, very, very fun to think about. Second of all, I think it's very comforting to believe that disasters are planned than to accept that chaos exists. Ships sink, that's just the way it is. That's the way it's been since humans first ventured out onto the ocean. It happened. But also because conspiracies give tragedy a villain. And because the idea that the Titanic never sank feels strangely hopeful, the truth is darker. Titanic sank because of arrogance, because of speed, because of ignored warnings, and because sometimes history really is just a chain of human mistakes. And yeah, that is the conspiracy that the Titanic was never actually sunk. If you stayed this long into the video, I really do appreciate it, and it means the world. Again, if you are interested, we do cover stuff like this on the channel every single week, and it would mean the world if you could drop a like on this video or even subscribe to see what else we got planned, because we got a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be talking about in the near future. But yeah, the reason why I wanted to make a video on this is honestly it's a really cool theory. I have a lot of personal opinions about it. I mean, for starters, I do not think the insurance theory is all that plausible, because there really, again, like I mentioned earlier, there wasn't much for White Star Line to gain financially out of this. The political theory is possible. I mean, we've seen people killed for less. I guess I'll say that, but who knows? And does it really matter? It can't change the fact that 1,500 people died on that boat, and whether there was a reason for it or not, it's still a tragedy and should be remembered as such. But yeah, again, if you stayed this far into the video, I really, really do appreciate you guys watching it. Sorry if I sounded a little bit drained. I'm recording this at about 11:20 p.m. and I am very tired, and am going to bed. So yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. Stick around on the channel, see what we got planned. I'll have a new video coming out next week. Probably, I want to cover the video game series Retro Bowl, because that's really cool to me, and I really like it. And we're going to dive into some more conspiracy theories and other stuff soon. But yeah, if you want to go check out the channel, see what we got already. I'm still learning the YouTube thing, so I'll probably transition to longer form videos in the future. But again, if you did stay this long, I really appreciate it. I don't know, I've said that like 5 times. Pretty awkward wrapping up videos, but appreciate you guys. Thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless. Bye.